There we go. Okay, we're live. We're running a little bit behind tonight, but no worries. We will get through this real quick. This is a Sassy holiday special, and thanks to the suggestion from Nick, we are going to be reading some silly passages and lines from a play called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, and then also just doing a little bit of discussion. I wouldn't necessarily call this play a saga of any sort, but it's silly and fun and weirdly religious and ridiculous. But here's a question though. I had never heard of this before. This play. It was written by somebody from North Carolina, and I believe first performed in Charlotte. So is this a Carolinas thing? Because Nick is from North Carolina, Becca is from South Carolina, and both of them had heard of it, but I never had. Had you heard of it, Seth?
I had. In fact,
okay.
I am pretty sure that I saw the TV movie.
Oh, there was a TV movie.
Oh, this has a whole... Okay, it started out as a book, and then it was a straight play, and then it was a TV movie starring Fairuza Balk.
And then it was a gay play.
And then that was gay, that was bi. And then finally, I guess like 5 years ago, somebody was like, why don't we make this a musical? Because we're still in sort of that sweep of Broadway going, why don't we make everything a musical?
Mm-hmm.
See, Tara, it is a saga.
I guess it is. Wow. This just takes us back to episode 3, what makes a saga? And in the end, I guess everything technically could be a saga. All right, so real quick, before we dive into this anymore, we'll introduce ourselves. It's Nick and I are the only usual hosts who are here, but we have a couple special guests. So as usual, my name's Tara. You can find me across the web at A Geek Saga. Becca, you're right there.
Hi, I'm Becca. I write for a website. You can find me at Starshine on Fire on Twitter and Instagram, and then Starshine's Adventures everywhere else.
I like how you're like, I write for a website. What website, Becca?
I'm sorry, I write for the Geeky Area because I almost said I write for a website with Tara, and then I was like, well, I webcast with a website with Tara. And I have a few webcasts of my own that I co-host. One's about K-pop, and one is about The Walking Dead and how much we hate it.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm on. So The Bitching Dead.
The Bitching Dead. And Bongtown Babes is the other one.
I was watching a bad Christmas movie yesterday, and this rich grandmother kept giving her grandchildren ridiculous gifts like Xboxes and iPads and $500 iTunes gift cards. And then, like, when Christmas morning actually came, she gave them seasons 1 through 6 of The Walking Dead on DVD or something. And I was like, year was this? The movie was made in 2017. I was like, oh, I mean, okay, I guess, but also. That's like here's an Xbox. Here's like a couple $100 in iTunes gift cards. Here's an iPhone. Garbage. Here's Walking Dead, like seasons 1 through 6 of The Walking Dead. Like how did we go so low, Grandma?
Come on, Grandma.
The movie was Bad Mom's Christmas or something like that. It's actually it's not a bad Christmas movie in terms of like the Netflix made or like Hallmark made bad Christmas movies, but I mean it wasn't great.
Bad Mom's Christmas.
Yeah, and yeah, so but the movie was filmed in Georgia, so I'm pretty sure that's why they were pushing. Anyway, Seth, you can go next.
Oh, right. Hi, I'm Seth. I'm a freelance nerd. I have a number of podcasts that we have dozens of listeners. There's Arrow Chapter and Verse, which is myself and my co-host Patrick Donahue, grudge watching all of the CW DC superhero shows because much like The Bitching Dead, we hate what we watch.
Arrow used to be good, but
Arrow like took a nosedive in season 4, and
that's exactly when I stopped watching.
I was gonna say we're in the beginning of season 6, and it's not getting any better. And all of the other shows seem to be suffering from various ailments. But if you're curious about what I think those are, you can go listen to the backlog of Arrow Chapter and Verse. There's also How I Spent My Allowance, which is myself and Patrick and three of our friends, Naomi, James, and Riley, and we are reading through various old Dungeons and Dragons novels and talking about those. We're currently doing Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and then we're going to move over to Dragons of Winter Night, I think at the beginning of March. There's Flailing Through First, where my friend Will and I talk about first edition D&D, and he likes the rules and I don't. And then there's my co-host Patrick's main podcast, which is called The Clink Tank, which is just a discussion podcast among a group of friends. Patrick likes to describe it as a conversation between friends you haven't met yet. So there we go. And if you're interested in contacting me directly, I don't know why you would be. You can find me on Twitter at Dark Lord of the Seth, I believe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was my short form improv handle for 10 years. Anyway, yes.
I guess that just leaves me.
I think it does, yeah.
Nick Popio, a regular on Sagas and Sass. And I sadly do not have any other podcasts. So that's a shame. I don't even have dozens of subscribers. I haven't watched The Walking Dead in forever.
That's okay. You don't have to watch it.
Nobody has.
There was a thing that happened, and I just couldn't bring myself to watch it anymore.
Valid.
And,
Valid.
That is my relationship with that. I tried, I couldn't do it. It's like Downton Abbey. There was just like one thing that happened in Downton Abbey pretty early on that I just was like, okay, I'm not going on with this
I was
anymore.
bullied into watching Downton Abbey. I'm not quite done with it yet, but
yeah, so that's it. I'm pretty easy, and I've just got the one podcast.
Most of those podcasts I think are COVID based. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to talk about stuff now.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how we started.
During COVID is pretty intense. Yeah, it is literally how we started. Tara was like, I need to do more creative things, and I was like, okay, that sounds fun. Let's do a creative thing.
I just got super obsessive about K-pop and I needed to talk about it. And Aaron was like, what if we do a webcast? And I was like, okay.
That's super legit.
Yeah.
So K-pop has taken over my life. Like it's become a true problem. And I haven't even started on any Korean dramas. So
it's almost like we're all geeks and we obsess over the things we love.
Almost. Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Or the things we don't love.
Yeah.
That you hate love or love hate or whatever combination of intense emotions it is.
Before we dive into this, I just have to share mine and Becca's own special saga called Damn It, Becca, in which I find pins and needles and open safety pins on my floor.
Where did you find that?
On my living room floor, poking out from under my mini fridge.
But I haven't been to your house with pins and needles for a while.
I'm just assuming it's from you.
It is mine. That's why it's so
I know.
It is.
For those of you listening to this for those of you listening to this as a podcast, I'm holding up a needle with a little.
It's a fabric pin.
Okay, it's a fabric pin with a little flower on top, and I was like, this is either somehow from like a child, like one of my nieces or nephews who shouldn't have needles, or it's Becca's. But clearly, it's Becca's because it always is. So that's our own Damn It, Becca saga of open safety pins and needles and sewing needles on my floor.
Your nieces and nephews are not in.
And also, everybody damn it, Becca's whenever there's something that happens and they don't want to take responsibility for it, so they just scream damn it, Becca, and regardless if I'm there or not.
There was one time at Dragon Con where we had cleaned out our entire hotel room for like checkout the next morning, and then we all got drunk. It was Monday night of Dragon Con. We all got drunk and ordered like 10 more boxes of pizza. So then our room was just a mess of pizza boxes again, and we blamed that on Becca, and she'd gone home or something. But anyway, so I had, even though that's a total non sequitur, I had to bring it up because I found this right before the webcast. So again, before we jump into this specific Christmas pageant, I just wanted to talk about very briefly the time that I was in a Christmas play called Christmas Lights. like Christmas lights that you hang, right? And it was written by my high school drama teacher. And yes, who he thought himself something of a, you know, he thought himself more than he really was. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And
He was an oxymoron.
yeah, I mean, listen, like this was our big play my senior year of high school. And then the year after that, the play they did was I Never Saw Another Butterfly, which is a very deep and dark, like Holocaust play.
Yeah,
So
super intense.
yeah,
Wow.
they actually did a pretty good job with it. The actors were really, the acting was really good in it. But
That's awesome.
but anyway, so this Christmas play that I was in was similar to Best Christmas Pageant Ever in that it was utterly ridiculous and nonsensical. But I almost feel like that is kind of how Christmas like plays and movies just have to be like 90% of the time. You know, thinking of like all the stupid Christmas holiday movies they put on Netflix and on Hallmark Channel and whatnot. You know, I guess like back then, the whole idea of the play was like a father, a widower who went nuts. Like his house was crazy decorated for Christmas every year, like over obnoxiously decorated, and it drew people in from like, you know, from other towns and stuff. And his mean, grinchy neighbor wanted him to have to take his lights down or not put them up or something. It's been it's been like 20 years, y'all. So I don't remember the specifics, but I played his daughter who came home from like France or something. Like literally, I think I'm pretty sure the story was I'd been in France for like a semester away at college or something. And I came home with a beret and a boyfriend. And I don't really remember anything else about the play other than that I wore a beret at the beginning because I'd been in France and that I had a boyfriend and that, you know, the father figure was like, I don't know about this guy. And then that was like that was its own like side tale to this whole big thing about the grinchy neighbor who wanted the father to like the widower to not be able to put up his Christmas lights. But this just reading this play just really kind of like brought me back to like the badly written, like, I mean, to be honest, like, I can't believe that this has been so many things because reading this, I was like, oh God, of course it was like written by some North Carolinian and like performed in Charlotte. I'd never heard of it before. And like, wow, it's a thing, this play.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
I grew up having this read to me every Christmas.
Oh wow.
I saw the movie. I've seen the play multiple times throughout my life. I wasn't in this one, but I was in a Christmas play too, where it's like third grade, and I played the mother, and they bought me a table because my children had destroyed my table. And whenever they were bringing the table in as a surprise, they dropped it on my foot. And so I was like, it was just and I was wearing my mom's cooking apron and her glasses, so I couldn't see a damn thing. And anyway, so that's my story. But yeah, great best Christmas pageant ever is it's a thing, weirdly enough.
I can't believe I guess I'm just the lone wolf here, having never heard of it before.
The South Carolina Children's Theater did it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like it's very much written for children's theater.
Yep.
I was going to say that I've never been in a Christmas play, but a few years ago, my wife and her best friend had a theater company, and we did a Christmas fundraiser, which was basically just a bunch of skits held together by the very thin plot line that my wife and her best friend were walking through DC looking for the meaning of Christmas. And like various, you know, we do various skits and come out and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was, yeah. So I I wrote the ones I was in, and there was one where I was explaining the meaning of Hanukkah, and then we went into a parody called Christmas Jews, which is a parody of Christmas shoes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is basically like there's two very embarrassed Jewish guys who are like, yeah, I guess we're celebrating Christmas because we have to, because otherwise our kids get jealous. And then the other one was Misandry Claus, which was me being an incel. So, you know, yes. Yes, he mispronounced it, so it was Miss Andry Claus.
Wow.
Even
Anyway.
though that's the hatred of men.
Yes, because he accused my character came out and accused my wife and her best friend of being misinterests.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You
Did that
said
make them naughty or
mistress
nice?
incel, and I was like, wait a second, what are these things doesn't belong?
Sorry, Nick. What was you said something I didn't quite hear?
Did that make them naughty or nice?
Well, obviously they were being nice. Well, no, I was being nice. I was a real nice guy.
Oh, you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was great. The costumer made me a red fedora with white fur trim.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Did
it
you
was.
keep it?
Yes, I did. It's actually downstairs right now.
Oh my gosh. I really wish you had worn it for this.
Yeah.
I wish I could. This is since we were talking about COVID earlier. I'm quarantining in the master bedroom until next Sunday. I'm fine, but I went down to visit my dad, and my dad takes care of my sister's kids, and my sister's an emergency room physician's assistant. So it's like, well,
Yeah, there's enough levels.
yeah. There's enough. Like, we don't know. So anyway, hi everyone.
Hi. Is your family watching so they can actually get some contact with you?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that's just weird.
I'm pretty sure they're not.
All right. Well, so I guess oh gosh. So we're gonna get into this play. I just want to make sure I'm gonna scroll down and make sure I'm not missing. Okay, yeah, we'll get into we'll read a little passage or two first, and then I have a couple questions.
Lovely.
So or wait, here. We'll have to do here. There's not quite enough of us, so I'm as we're going on, I'm like assigning, random lines to people. We're all playing multiple characters, and we're not going to read their names out loud or anything. Their names don't really matter, and honestly, half the time you don't even. There's very few places where there's actually more than like a few people talking, and you can tell that they're supposed to be different. So, I really, when I first read this, to be honest, I read this literally on Christmas Day, having never experienced it before. And I read it after I'd been drinking for several hours. So I didn't even finish it because I was like, I just got so drunk, I couldn't. And but the first passage where you meet the Herdmans, which is a hilarious name, by the way, and they come stomping in and they introduce themselves saying, "We're the horrible Herdmans, an unbeatable squad. I'm Imogen.
I'm Ralph.
I'm Leroy.
I'm Claude. Here's Ollie and
Gladys.
We're small, but we're mean."
Just one bite from Gladys can sure make you
I can't even
scream.
read that. I read this and I was like, I don't even care that if this is the only Gladys thing we say in this entire webcast. Becca needs to read Gladys because I just wanted her to have to bite.
So yeah, so I have bitten people before, and hard and not in a fun way. That's what you said.
Yeah.
I bit someone so hard that he was not able to use his arm.
Oh wow.
Oh shit.
And that was
Damn.
an accident. We were drunk and roughhousing.
You got some strong jaws on you.
I do. And then I bit Ren Miller, a friend of ours, and they had a giant bruise on their shoulder because they kept bothering me. I said, "If you bother me, I'm gonna bite you." So I bit them. And anyway,
Becca's a rabbit.
I am.
Just like Gladys.
Gladys like Gladys.
So I do have a question. How old are the Herdmen supposed to be? Like, there's several of them. There's
too many.
It actually says it at the very beginning.
Oh, does it?
It does, yeah. At the very beginning, it says, let me pull it up and I will tell you.
Well, and I was just curious because, like, seriously, Imogen Herman puts a cigar in her mouth, like in church. Where did she get that cigar? I know this is the 80s, but what is going on here?
So Ralph is 13, Imogen is 12, Leroy is 11, Claude is 10, Ollie is 9, and Gladys is 8. So there was
literally they're all 1 year apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're, from some of the context clues, I think this is actually supposed to be taking place in the 50s.
It says the 60s.
Oh, the 60s? Okay, all right. But yeah, it's
I couldn't tell.
It's in the 1960s, a small town in southern Ohio.
Okay. See, that's what you get if you actually read the directions in the play.
Which I did, so I was also drunk when I
it took me so long to read it, and that's why I was bitching in the main chat. I was like, oh God, I can't read all this, because that's what I thought it was, but then you're right, most of it was music. But yeah, so they have everything. They have all the characters, all the kids, how old they are, the setting.
I think I read that on Christmas Day when I was drunk.
You're real drunk.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to mention about the Herdmans, if I can, is that okay, so based on Wikipedia, right? So take it with a grain of salt. It said that the original novel was somewhat inspired by the second Shepherd's Play, which is a medieval play that would have been, performed usually around Christmas time, is the whole thing. And I went then and looked up the second Shepherd's Play, and I'm like, I don't see how that works, because the second Shepherd's Play is basically 3 shepherds coming in and bitching about conditions for the working man. And then a swindler comes in and steals a sheep, and at the end of the play, they elect not to kill him, but to wrap him in a sheepskin and see how he likes it. And then they go off to bring Jesus presents. And I'm like, I get the disruptive influence maybe coming in, but I don't.
I feel like that could be somebody doing some bad Wikipedia editing.
It could be, or maybe like she mentioned it in an interview, and maybe it's more obvious in the novel than it is in either the play. I actually went and read the straight play too. It's
the novel is actually what I had read to me.
Oh wow!
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So no is the answer to your question. It is not drawing more heavily from the Shepherd's Play.
Yeah.
Well, and and also I wanted to say, like, I also looked up, was trying to find like some discussion questions and stuff about it when I was reading through it on Christmas, and I found like a thing that said, like, I found an article that included discussion questions about the 80s references in the play. So that, I think that's why I thought it was in the 80s, because there was like, they were trying to figure out references to like Twinkies and Mr. Magoo, and I was like, I don't really know how long Mr. Magoo has been around, but like Twinkies have been around for a long time. Twinkies aren't just an 80s thing.
Yeah.
So it seems very weird to me that I found this article that was like, but the 80s references is now, I'm like, I think that's what threw me off. Like, I definitely read the whole thing, even the stage direction. So oops.
Yeah, no, it's also weird because it's like, yeah, a child, a teen, early teen to preteen child, a tween child, mentioned Mr. Magoo. Okay, yes, kids were doing that in the 80s. No, we weren't. We were talking about Transformers and Voltron.
Yeah.
Mr. Magoo.
When the play was first published?
The play, I think, was 82.
Yeah.
Yeah. Play was 82, film was 83.
Like, maybe they're just real ignorant about the history of the actual story, and so they were like, "Oh, well, the play was from the '80s, so
it must be an '80s play." I think the book was 71.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow! So, okay, well then that makes then of course it makes sense that it's in the '60s.
Yeah.
Mr. Magoo said he originated in '49. Twinkies originated in 1930.
Yeah.
Wow, Twinkies are that old.
And some of those Twinkies are still around and edible today.
Mm.
I haven't had a Twinkie since I was like 10 or something, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what they taste like.
Can't say the same.
I remember.
Mostly, like, I don't know, chemicals?
Yeah.
I mean, spongy, a little vanilla, very sort of
vanilla, sugar.
Yeah, sugar.
But like they're more texture than flavor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you
Well,
might as
remember
well-
when like Hostess or whatever was like everybody thought they were closing down and there weren't going to be any
Mhm.
more Twinkies, and there was like a run on Twinkies. One of my friends worked at Walgreens at the time and bought a whole bunch of Twinkies with his employee discount and legit made like $400 or $500 selling them on eBay.
What?
Damn.
Wow.
Good for them.
And then eventually like they didn't
They're
shut
like,
down and
"Oh,
there are still
okay."
Twinkies anyway, but like he'd already sold them all and made his money, so like good for him.
Yep.
Anyway, this isn't the Twinkie saga. It's the saga of the Herdman
That's a whole
children.
different podcast we could
Yeah.
start. The sagas of different snack foods.
All right. So we want to our next passage begins with Grace, who comes in about talking about the Christmas pageant, but there's a problem.
Yeah, because Grace is the mom of the other family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, the non-Herdman family.
The mom of the
Yeah.
narrator.
The mom
Right.
of the narrator. So we've
Yeah.
got two main families. We've got the Herdmans and we've got the narrator's family. And then we've got all the other kids at Sunday school. And Grace is the mom of the other family.
Gotcha.
This flyer was in the church newsletter. Helen, oh no, wait, no, they're in Ohio. Helen Armstrong is holding auditions for the Christmas pageant this Sunday.
Not anymore, she isn't.
What are you talking about?
I ran into Ed Armstrong. Helen fell on the ice.
Oh no, Bob, she's in the hospital.
Hooray!
We don't have to do the pageant.
That's terrible. Someone else will just have to direct the pageant.
Can't we just stay home this year?
Yeah, and watch Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol on TV.
Sounds good to me.
No one's staying home and no one's watching Mr. Magoo.
But it's going to be the same old thing. Alice Wendelkin will play Mary.
Elmar Hopkins will play Joseph.
And I'll have to go.
Bob's constant like reiteration of the fact that like, do I really have to go to this Christmas pageant was like, yeah, and even finishing up reading it when I was sober, I was like, well,
Well, the
Poor Bob.
actual like the actual Christmas pageant itself, because we do get to see the performance, it seems like the Christmas pageant that gets upset a little bit is perhaps 15 minutes of somebody narrating the Christmas story,
Mhm.
kids shuffling on and off stage and singing Christmas carols. And it sounds like it would be the worst thing ever to watch.
It's not the worst thing ever to watch. So that happened every year in the church that I grew up in.
Same.
It was actually like, to my mind as a kid at least, like it was the best because it was like going to church, but it wasn't really going to church.
I
yeah,
understand.
same.
So from that perspective, it was actually great, but it is always exactly the same. And I think one of the things that the best Christmas pageant ever does that I love is kind of subvert that idea of maybe it doesn't always have to be exactly the same.
Yeah,
And
I just couldn't get over the fact that there were no lines, or there was no acting in the original. There was just narrating and people moving.
yeah, there's only a few lines in the actual Christmas pageant traditionally.
Yes, yeah.
Gabriel has the traditional line that Gladys subverts, and I added that to our quotes because I just love it. But mostly it's just narrated by people from the congregation, and then kids are like standing around.
Because like
Yeah.
for us, we always did it. We did a Christmas pageant every year, and it was always the same thing where the little kids had to be angels, and they all wore the
Mhm.
cute little costumes, you know. And my mother always did the costumes. And then of course you had, you know, Mary and Joseph. I think I may have been Mary one year.
Ooh,
But it was a
man.
Baptist. I know, right? I was really going up in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it was a little small Baptist. It was a little small Baptist church, and every ding diddly year, the same thing. And then at my grandparents' church, it was the same thing too. You know, where they read the thing and they just had, you know, Mary and Joseph, the Christmas pageant. It's such a southern. I guess other places do it too, but it's such a southern church, tiny church thing to do.
I'm gonna skip ahead like 2 little lines here and read this line where Beth, one of Grace's children, says, she's talking to Alice, who they've already said is going to play Mary. And she says, "You have to play Mary. You're smart and neat and, well, so holy looking." And I just have to say that because I never got to play Mary in my church's Christmas pageant because I was not holy.
I just like I.
By the time I was old enough, they were like, "That Tara girl."
It also had to
She
be
is
a
not
cow.
holy looking.
So
I
mean-
never went to church or temple,
I'm
so
jealous.
like yeah, I know. I grew up in a completely secular household. It was great, but that means like none of this is familiar to me. Like I'm like,
That's fair.
and you do this is a thing you do. Is it Gentiles? Okay, fine.
Well, and so interestingly, the best Christmas pageant ever, and the Bob character specifically, was one of the first exposures that I had as a kid to somebody who didn't want to go to church like every
Yeah.
Sunday. Like I grew up with the understanding that like you were supposed to go to church every Sunday and you're supposed to like it, and I did not. And so the fact that this Bob character was like, I have to go to church and I have to watch this stupid thing that I watch every year. I was like, there's another way.
That actually makes me wonder. So did Bob go to church regularly, or did he just only get forced to go on holidays? Because there were like, I also grew up in a Baptist church, shockingly, since I'm from New England. And my church was fairly small. I think we had about 150 people. Of course, on holidays, there were a lot more there, but like there were several families in our church where like the wife and the children would come to church every week, or sometimes more than once a week, but the husband never came, and like except for on holidays. And then the husband would show up in his jeans and his nicest shirt, and like I being a kid, like I remember people side-eyeing it, you know what I mean? Like, oh, so-and-so's husband's here again this year, like. So I kind of want to know, was Bob that guy, or did he go every week and just hate it and complain about it all the time? Like,
that's so interesting because textually it doesn't say.
Yeah.
But I always read it because of how I was raised. I always read it as he goes, but begrudgingly. But that's just because I was like projecting my own sense of I don't really want to go and do this onto it.
Right. And I guess to be honest, reading through it, I didn't really think about it, but now now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm guessing he actually was like the husband who just went, he had to go on holidays, and maybe he worked most Sundays or something like that. That's always a possibility. But yeah, well, I guess maybe not so much back in the 60s, but unless he was like at a restaurant or something. But like, but yeah, like now that I'm really thinking about it, I'm like, no, I think he might have been the father/husband who like they made him go on holidays, and he was just like, ugh, gotta go to this stupid Christmas pageant again.
Yeah, I did go. I occasionally would go to church with friends because that was the only way I could hang out with a couple of people on Sunday. But it was always like, I'm not sure. Like, I definitely feel out of place here, for obvious reasons. But it's also like none of this seems to be serving any purpose. It's just a bunch of people head down praying the same prayers, and I'm like, that's it always seemed odd to me. So what I'm saying is I can understand Bob's point of view.
It's very easy to understand Bob's point of view.
Yeah.
My dogs really want to go outside, and I'm trying to get my friend who's here to let them out, but he's got headphones on playing a video game, so it's not working for me.
What's he playing, out of curiosity?
The newer Star Wars, the one where you're like in an X-wing or something, or a TIE fighter. It's like a. Technically, he should be playing it with a joystick, I think, is
okay.
What it is, but I'm not sure of the name, honestly. But anyway, so going back, just there's a couple lines that are a little bit earlier than the "you have to play Mary" one. One being the church lady is all saying like, little kids dressed up like angels, or little kids dressed up like little angels. What could go wrong?
Everything.
Yeah, that is, if I recall correctly, that is from the song where everyone is trying to convince Grace to direct the pageant.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, again, looking at what's happening, it's a bunch of kids every year you've got very few rehearsals. It's Christmas time, so you could assume they probably had a couple of cookies before coming into the pageant. They're hyped up on sugar. And, you've got like wire and tinsel halos, white robes, which is a dangerous thing to do around little children anyway. Yeah. Again, it's weird for me because I understand why you would do that, in that this is one of the fundamental stories of the religion. This is the time of year when it happened, and we want to make sure that this is underscored. But it's also like, why are you doing this with small children? It seems like you're just going to make a mockery of the thing that you're trying to celebrate.
Yep. That's pretty accurate.
I'm looking at the document. Have we moved on to the next bit yet?
We did not. We were waiting for you.
Okay, yeah. So it wasn't me who was going to read the next line, but yes, sorry, my dogs. It is like a little bit past their dinner time, so they're being a bit.
Yeah. Well, it's the shepherds you have to worry about. They're always whamming in each other with their canes.
I just think that's a really hilariously stupid line.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Also, who is Ivy? Like, I don't remember this person really at all. Like,
it's one of the
church lady.
One of the other kids. There's a bunch of, like, if you ask me, there are probably too many herdmans to begin with. There's like there's like 6 of them, and 3 of them are interchangeable, which says to me, give every, just make that one character, give that person all those lines.
Yeah.
But it's also like, here is another child from the congregation. Does she have a personality? No, she does not.
Why would she?
I mean, not really any of, like, honestly, really the only kids that have personalities in this play are Alice and the Herdmans, if you ask me.
Yeah, and Beth kind of does, right? She's the narrator, if I remember right.
Beth and Charlie does.
Yeah.
As well.
I guess a little bit.
Yeah, but
they're mostly bland.
When I was reading, when I went back and read the non-musical version, like, there's just chunks of Beth coming out on stage and just narrating crap. It's like, this is how everybody felt about it, and this is what they did. And something in the musical that's 5 pages long and has a song is 3 lines in the original play. It's
because they had to drag it out.
They had to pad it. Yeah.
At one point, well over halfway through reading the play, it was like intermission time. If there's an intermission, and I was like, why would you need an intermission in a play that should take like 45 minutes to do? Like,
yeah, honestly, the musical, I think, is
a lot of kids.
Somebody's going to need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Oh gosh. I gave Seth, I gave you a random line that just
yeah. It's the Herdmans are coming, and what happens then is they walk into the school lunchroom and just beat up on everybody and take their lunches.
Yep.
That's and it's like, it's one of these things where it's like, really? Like, nobody at the school is doing anything about this? This is just a thing that happens? Like, the Herdmans are so bad for a given value of, like, they're sort of the kid version of comic book villains.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're so over the top in what they do and what they get away with. But anyway, I guess that's the point, because they're going to teach us the true meaning of Christmas.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
And we have there's a couple things I wanted to discuss, but first off, this is like the one passage when I was reading through this, I was like, okay, yeah, I want to read this. And it's Helen, who, I don't know, fell on the ice or something and can therefore no longer direct the Christmas play because she's permanently in the hospital. Like, I'm still confused as to why she was in the hospital for so long for falling or whatever. But she says, she's talking about, she's telling Grace how she can explain things, I think, to the children who are going to be in the pageant. But she says, you can tell them God chose Joseph to be Jesus's dad, but don't spend too much time on the subject. It can be confusing. And don't let the wise men stand next to the shepherds. They always start hitting each other. And the baby angels are going to be your biggest problem. Someone has to push them on. And absolutely no live animals. What live animals would they be having in like a small town Christmas play?
Sheep,
First of all,
donkeys,
Yeah.
cows, goats,
Roosters.
chickens. I can keep going.
Yeah.
that's a
sheep,
lot.
I guess. But like, I mean, did you ever have live animals in your Christmas pageants? Because we didn't.
No, however, I have seen live animals in other Christmas pageants.
And this is like small town Ohio, so it sounds like somebody might have tried that at some point.
Yeah.
Clearly not Helen, though. She's too good for that.
I think Helen either tried it her like first year or saw the previous person who did
maybe,
it try it, and it was just such a disaster that she was like, "Do not ever do this again."
I just,
That's
yeah,
more
the
like
whole, like,
headcanon about what happened.
and absolutely, yeah, I know. Seriously, like, I want to hear what happened with the live animals. I don't care about the rest of this play. So speaking of live animals, though, this is like a half-ass segue, but I do want to talk about how when they're talking about the Herdmans and how bad they are, and they talk about how they brought their cat to show and tell, which is, you know, that's adorable, right? But apparently their cat is just some monstrous animal. But also, like, the teacher broke the aquarium, which somehow contained 20 goldfish, and the cat ate 20 goldfish, and then it also ate a hamster.
And glass. A cat also ate the glass.
Oh gosh, I missed that, I think.
Yeah, I
just missed noting it. But like, so the cat ate 20 goldfish, some glass, and some other kid had brought a hamster, so it ate a hamster too. And so they got recess for the rest of the day. What the hell does that even mean?
It means
we never got recess for the rest of the day because somebody brought a bad show and tell thing. Like,
well, it sounds like it was a fairly traumatic event. Also, their cat, the way their cat's described is it's essentially Grebo from Discworld. If anybody's
I don't know anything about Discworld.
Yeah, Grebo is yes. He basically he's sort of the cat godfather of a rather largish area in the mountains in Discworld because he's scarred, he's got one-eyed, and he's not afraid to use his claws, which it sounds like the Herdman's cat is similar.
Yes. It makes me think of a because they talk about the cat being like a bobcat or lynx or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That they just like took in this wild, not large cat, but like medium cat.
A very mean tomcat with like one ear that's been missing, and its tail is. They say that it's it walks with a limp, and its tail is broken.
Mm-hmm.
What else do they say? Or maybe it's missing a leg and its tail is broken, something like that. And then the mother walks the cat on a chain up and down the railroad tracks. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Well, it's like a personification of the Herdmans, right? Like,
yeah.
Like Seth was saying, these characters are so over the top. They're like the quintessential bullies.
Yeah.
And so the cat is like, if you took a mean-ass cat and turned it up to 11, basically, that is the Herdman's cat.
Yeah. And the cat was also in that show and tell is described as scratching everybody, which is why the teacher accidentally broke the aquarium, which, again, an aquarium that holds 20 goldfish in a primary school, that's a big aquarium. That's a lot of water. So
yeah, also like goldfish, they will continue growing as long as they have space to grow. So
yep.
They actually talk about how many gallons the tank was.
Oh, did they? Oh shit.
Yeah. I'm sorry, like I this is so weird that like
she read it most recently.
Yeah,
was it 20? Because like 20 is like the normal like a gallon aquarium that you would see.
So
60,
so the aquarium had 60 goldfish
uh-huh.
and 20 gallons of water.
Well, that is not right.
No,
The
Yeah.
herdman's cat gobbled up the goldfish, glass and all, and then it
Those-
swallowed Ramona Gaffey's pet hamster.
Now, mind you, it is the kids saying this, so they might be exaggerating a little bit.
true,
One
yeah.
would think.
Yeah, those
No, I
goldfish.
think they're a reliable narrator. I think you can trust everything they say.
Yeah.
Those goldfish were clearly being abused. Also, like, my first thought is like, those are all the goldfish that were supposed to get sent home with the kids who like
Yep.
won the goldfish for their reading prize. Because like
Right.
that's like when I was a kid, like we used to get one year they gave us goldfish. If you read so many books, one year they gave us like hermit crabs. Like
Huh.
You
How
should
many-
not give children
How many
pets.
books did
Why
you have
are
to
you-
read to get the pets?
probably like 50 in like a
Okay.
summer or something. But
Oh, yeah.
also, I know, right? But also, like those, like my poor parents. I'm not kidding you. We brought home lots of stupid animals from these reading things because I read a lot, like
Yeah.
a lot. So. I think I won like 3 hermit crabs one summer, and I was like, oh, I won one for me and each of my sisters. And my parents got tired of the tank smelling, like the little tank that they were in. So they put them out in the swamp behind our house. They just released the hermit crabs into the wild.
Oh, the hermit crabs. At first, I thought you were talking about the fish, and I was like,
No, no, I'm pretty sure the fish just died and got flushed down the toilet. But,
Hermit
like,
crab's not a swamp crab.
yeah,
"Swamp
I know.
crab."
I know it was not a good look for my parents, but also like my poor parents like being suckered into like having hermit crabs as pets because like we were too young to give a crap about these hermit crabs, you know?
It's weird to me that they also didn't give a more like appropriate prize. It's like you read 50 books over the summer. What do you want? Well, the next time the Scholastic Book Fair hits town, I want a gift certificate's what I want. It's like, why are you giving away live animals for reading? I don't understand the connection.
I mean, I don't know when they stopped doing that, but I don't think it ever should have been a policy. But yeah, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I'm wondering if this is like just the number of goldfish this poor teacher ended up with because like all these kids read or something and they won their dumb goldfish and their parents were like, we're not taking these goldfish.
One would have to think.
So anyway, OMG, next up, the Herdmans the kids inadvertently invite the Herdmans to Sunday school. How dare? Like, isn't that what Sunday school is about, though? Is like you invite people who, like.
Well, but they weren't a churchin' family.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I was raised Baptist. Like, the whole point of church was like to proselytize and like bring people into the church. So,
well, it sounds like, I don't know, like it sounds like the Herdmans were from the wrong side of the tracks in every possible permutation of the tracks. But it's also weird. It's like they don't actually get invited to Sunday school. Charlie's just like, you know what? Take my dessert. I ate all the dessert I want at Sunday school. It's made of candy, basically. And the Herdmans are like, okay, well, we want in on this.
well, for sure, because they're also told that there's food. So like they do show up, and Imogen, who I guess is the oldest sister, says, hey, Alice, where are the snacks? And Alice, which is Becca, I think was going to read it.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You said that we're having Kool-Aid and cookies after the auditions for the pageant, if that's what you mean.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Imogen. Don't do
She
it.
totally drinks the Kool-Aid.
She does drink the Kool-Aid.
And that's why we end up with all this drama.
But that's like my first thought when I read this was like, she's like, where are the snacks? And I was like, well, we're having Kool-Aid and cookies. And it's like, of course, that's like what we used to have when I was in church too. But like,
But also
my first
don't
thought
drink
was, don't drink Kool-Aid, Imogen.
Yeah. And then they go on, like from there, it's like it's this weird sort of like the Herdmans take over the pageant, not exactly by accident, but it's Imogen's whim, right? Because Alice is like, Imogen's like, what's a pageant? Alice is like, well, it's a thing, and I'm probably going to be Mary. And Imogen decides then and there that she wants to be Mary. So when Grace asks for volunteers, the only people to volunteer for any of the parts are Herdmans, which is, I guess, why it's funny to have 6, because you can have like the 3 herdmans who don't really do anything volunteer to be the shepherds.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Although, to be honest, Ralph Herdman doesn't really do much either. It's basically just Imogen and Gladys.
Yeah, mostly it's them. They're running the show.
Like they could have just done quick costume changes and been all the characters, Imogen and Gladys.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'd
and
love
so
to see that version.
they come in and they claim all the parts, and they just bully their way into the parts, which is just how they've worked throughout the entire. That's how they worked when they showed up at the school for lunch and stole everybody's lunches. And Beth, narrator person, says, she's talking to Alice. She says, "Why didn't you speak up? I thought you wanted to play Mary." And Alice is
I'll say something.
So Imogen, and then Alice says, Imogen told me that she was playing Marion. If I even opened my mouth, she would get a pussy willow and jam it so far into my ear that it would come out the other side.
I did not read this happening, okay? Like, I remember, choosing this as a passage for us to read simply for the fact that there's never actually a point where Imogen says this in the play.
So
It happens often.
Ridiculous.
And also...
So she doesn't say, but there's a part where Alice is like, "I'm going to the bathroom," and then Imogen is like, and so she goes with her siblings into the girls' bathroom, and you hear whispering, and basically that's Imogen's part where she is threatening to jam a pussy willow into Alice's.
Well, this was
ear.
still the point where Tara was reading this wasted on Christmas Day.
Okay.
So eventually,
I'm just telling them.
No. I'm thank you for explaining that, because I was like, I remember highlighting this passage because I was specifically like, what the fuck? Like, when did this happen?
Which is, I think it's actually a great question, because for my money, it's bad writing.
The writing in this is terrible.
In a play, to have that happen off stage. It makes more sense in the novel. It's, I think, funny in a novel, but on stage, no, you want to see Imogen have that confrontation with Alice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's yes, it's not a particularly well done play
Stage adaptation.
or musical.
No.
Shots fired.
It's not a particular.
It's okay. We're called Sagas and Sass. We can be a little sassy.
That's true.
To be honest, we're often less sassy than we should be, maybe.
I know.
But this is worth the sass. But also, we've been reading a pretty solid series with the Grishaverse, so it's a little bit different to have something that's kind of absolute trash to talk
I
about.
think all of my sass, not that I'm not on the Grishaverse episodes, but all of my sass would have been reserved for the first 3 books. I think because if I love Kaz and crew, I heart them so much. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, we
sassier.
were a little bit sassier for the first 3 books, but we also were very much because 3 of the 4 of us had actually already read at least the first book in the Six of Crows duology. We were probably a little bit less sassy because we were very much like, oh, but Lee Bardugo grows so much as an author, and that's that's why we are # we love growth in this house.
Oh my, it's like, if you haven't read The Language of Thorns, which is the one, hey, it's a little bit of a tangent. If you haven't read The Language of Thorns, which is her book of short stories, which I got because they had one of those contests where it's like enter to win a free book. And I was like, hey, I'd like a free book. The stories there are so well written, and some of them are heartbreaking, and they're so very good that when I went back and read the first 3 books of the Grishaverse, it was a disappointment because those are sort of bog standard YA young teenage female protagonist does stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? The one thing I will give the best Christmas pageant ever is that while it does have main, teenage-ish, I guess, female characters that do the things, I like Imogen. She's hilarious. I mean, Alice is a little bit kind of weak, one note, villain of the story.
Yeah.
Not to jump ahead too much, but when the Christmas pageant happens eventually, because it does, obviously, I don't think that's too much of a spoiler here. So eventually when the Christmas pageant does happen, Alice shows up with her Mary costume, just in case. I was like, oh, that is so mean, girl. But anyway, there's so much that happens before that, including when the Herdmans get cast in the pageant, and some random child who never shows up again wants to know why.
No,
I think she might be one of the church ladies.
Connie Betty. Yeah, she's a church lady.
Yeah.
Connie says, "Where was Reverend Hopkins? I'd like to know."
And some other rando churchgoer says he was visiting shut-ins.
And
And then some other rando says, I'm a shut-in. He wasn't visiting me. Something has to be done about this.
That's Helen. That's the
Excuse
woman
me,
who
that is not a
usually
random. That is
right.
Helen.
Yeah. Basically, to compare to another musical, if this were the Music Man, the church ladies would be singing "Pick a Little, Talk a Little."
Yep.
That's for those of you who've seen the Music Man. Anyway, moving on.
Sorry.
I do know that
seen the
song.
Music
Yeah,
Man?
I get you. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Thank you. Also, you have a very cute dog walking around in the background, and that's great.
Oh yeah,
Which
they're
one is
mad
it?
right now. It's probably I think it's Sokka. Oh no, you can't. There he is.
There he is.
It's
Hey,
just his butt.
Sokka.
Yeah, they're my dogs are annoyed because they usually get fed at 5 p.m. So this
Right.
is like,
They're
I had to
"What's going
delay
on?"
their dinner. Whatever. So and which anyway, so next up, speaking of Helen, when she finds out that Grace has, she's found out that Grace has cast the Herdmans and she's like freaking out about it.
Grace, you must replace them. It's the Christian thing to do. If not, they'll look like fools when they don't come through.
And Grace is like, what about their feelings after such a blow? Having never seen this as a musical, I have no idea what the tune is supposed to be here. But this conversation, it kind of happens like a couple times in different ways throughout this play. And like replacing them is the Christian thing to do.
Yep.
Well, it's, again, teaching the true meaning of Christmas. We've forgotten what the true meaning is. We've become hypocrites, but now with the Herdman's performance, we can be reborn once again unto the true faith or something like that.
Listen, you godless so-and-so, how dare you be accurate?
This is just my opinion of this thing.
Oh yeah, no, the kind of like the kind of over the top like wannabe religious stuff in this is pretty great.
Yeah.
And by great, I mean,
especially considering that, again, like this was first written back in the early 70s. So like the fact that there was that kind of sentiment, I appreciate it. Like, and I appreciate having grown up in church. Like, I appreciate that there are more ways to look at Christianity than just let's do exactly what's always been done. Let's, adhere to the Bible strictly, all of those things. Because that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah.
You know what else? Go ahead, Seth. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it really is just... have any of you ever read Gormenghast?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I don't want to go too much into it because a lot could be said about Gormenghast. But there's a guy whose job it is to remember all of the rituals that go along with all of the things that happen on a day-to-day basis. And nobody knows why these are done or why they're important. They are just done because that's the way it's always been.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the way the Christmas pageant has been presented, it's lost all meaning. And it's just become, that's the way it's always been. And the meaning that is attached to it is Grace does it and it's perfect every year. Or not Grace, Helen does it and it's perfect every year because that's what she wants. And Alice does it because she's the Virgin Mary because she's the best one. And that's...
She's so holy looking.
Yeah, she's so holy looking. I don't. Yeah.
Unlike me. I do imagine, because Becca said she thinks she played Mary one time in her church's Christmas pageant, and I imagine Becca, like young Becca with her cherubic cheeks.
I also played a cow, so I mean, like I was an angel, I was Mary, I was a shepherd.
Yeah, you were making the rounds in the cast.
She was
Yeah, wow.
prolific.
Yeah.
I mean, this is over a period of several years.
Do you have this on your theater resume?
Alas, I
Oh
do
yeah, it
not.
goes all the way back.
It doesn't go. My resume doesn't quite go back that far.
Christmas pageant, everything.
Yeah.
Period 1995 to
No,
2006.
you have to put each year that you were participating and each role that you have.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because otherwise,
how will they know how good you are?
Yeah.
My
exactly.
theater resume was pretty like good, from like middle high school to like through college and maybe just after, and then there's just this blank space for like 15 or 16 years, and then I was in a parody musical, and that's it. Anyway, speaking of, we were talking about, that doesn't just make sense, and that was going to be a good segue, but then we got off on another little tangent. But speaking of things that don't make sense, this next thing where they're supposed to be singing, I guess, Silent Night.
Yeah.
That's right. But then the Herdman boys overpronounce and change night to fart.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's such a boy thing to do.
It's literally like silent fart, and the kids all just go, Herdmans!
Yeah.
Yes.
Then they
no.
fart. Yeah.
They don't say.
Well, it's supposed to be it's silent night.
No,
holy night, right? So it's silent fart. Holy. Where's the deadly come in?
So the Herdmans. Whenever you said Herdmans, that's not something that the kids actually say. That's a stage direction. So half of the Herdmans are singing.
Oh, okay. I copied and pasted this when I was drunk still. So we're still dealing with drunk Tara nonsense here.
So what they're doing is they're singing Silent Night, but the Herdman boys are singing slightly louder, and so Silent Night fart. Holy instead of
fart.
Holy and half.
Okay. So that's on me when I was copying and pasting these passages, and I was like, what the hell is this?
No, it's fine.
This might have been like towards the very end of when I could like focus on reading this thing on Christmas Day. Listen, I know I keep talking about how drunk I got on Christmas Day, but like it had been like a week, and I was just like, you know what?
You never have to apologize.
My family thing ended, and like I've been made fun of for like 2 days straight for wearing a mask around these assholes. So I'm just gonna get wasted.
Yeah, I mean, and getting drunk on Christmas is a fine old Christmas tradition.
Yeah, Christmas Eve, Christmas, like just spend the whole time drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, last year last year my boyfriend and I are long distance currently, but not for very long. And we last year he did not have his kids or like really any plans or anything. So and neither did I. So like I finished with my family brunch thing at like 1, and his kids left his house by like 1:30, East Coast time, and we just got drunk and played Red Dead for like 8 hours. So this year was a little bit different, but I was like, well, like I said, I just had to spend like yesterday afternoon and like this morning wearing a mask around my family because I don't trust them. Like they don't go anywhere or do anything, but they also don't wear masks when they go to the grocery store and stuff. So I was like, I'm just going to be that person and wear a mask just to prove a point, honestly. And also for my own safety too, like just better safe than sorry type of thing, even though they literally don't go anywhere other than the grocery store. Like none of them, they all work, from home or together or whatever. But like, I was just ready to get drunk and watch some bad Christmas movies. And like, I started reading this too. And there was a point, and I think this might've been about it, cause I'm pretty sure. Yes, the last thing I put in here as a line when I was drunk on Christmas was Alice saying, I tell my mom everything. I write it down. Because what?
Well, Alice hasn't learned about what snitches get.
What do snitches get?
They get stitches. No,
Yeah,
no,
they
that's
do. Yeah,
Well,
they do.
the funny thing is, like, so I'm finishing, like I finished reading this play sober, and I realized that when Alice was saying, I tell my mom everything, I write it down, she was just talking about telling her mom everything that was happening with the play.
Yes.
So when I drunk read this on Christmas Day, I was like, this child is like keeping a diary of her life and telling her mother everything that she does, and which honestly that wouldn't necessarily be out of character for this character. So that was my mindset on Christmas Day, was like, who the fuck tells their mom everything? But then like I didn't remove it simply because today I realized, like, oh, she meant she tells her mom everything that's going on with the
yeah. Which is still if I
snitches,
if I could use the kids terminology, that's highly sus.
Yes, it is very sus.
Hello, fellow youths.
Hello, fellow youth.
They're about to get vintage.
I'm on the TikToks anyway.
Now you got to do the TikTok dances.
Yeah.
I don't even know what those are. Oh, I gave up on TikTok real quick. All right, so next up, so the Herdmans come in, and they're trying to, I guess, figure out what is going on in this, because Herdmans, they apparently don't know the nativity story.
Which, again, I'm like, okay, I get that you don't go to church. Let me understand this. You children in Ohio in the 60s have never heard the story of Jesus. Ever? Once? No one has ever. You've never seen it in? Okay, sure.
It does seem a little far-fetched.
I've met a surprising amount of people who don't know the story of Jesus. But
like now, or kids who
are they
growing up
from
in, like,
Europe? What is going on?
no,
like,
they just come from different socioeconomic status, and they just never went to church. And so whenever somebody was like, I don't know who Jesus is, I was like,
well, that
what?
sounds
It just
un-American.
crammed down my throat from a very young age.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It sounds un-American for the simple fact of, like, even if you don't go, so like they would have to not go to church, and they would have to, like, either not have a TV or not watch the TV at any point, like during December. Like I'm not saying that, I'm just absolutely certain that there are people in this country, even if they're like born and raised here from infancy, whatever, like, that don't know these things. But I feel like that would be, I've certainly never met anybody that didn't know at least the very basics of, the nativity story. And I feel like that's got to be pretty rare. Like, again, because it's shoved down our throat. Like,
yes, exactly. That's what it is to me. Like, in case it wasn't obvious, I was trying to be sarcastic. Because of how much it is shoved down our throats, despite the idea of separation of church and state, particularly the story of Jesus and Jesus's birth around Christmas, which, by the way, didn't happen in December.
Yes.
It is so ubiquitous that's what makes it hard to believe that there are people who haven't heard that story at some point.
I'm good. Sorry, that reminded me of something. We just watched an episode of The Flash, their Christmas episode that year, where the villain and his wife, like, long story short, the villain's getting reborn, and his wife's like, so you're going to share a birthday with the Savior. And then the villain says, the Nazarene wasn't even born in winter. If you take a look at the constellations, look at a history book. You don't need to be like, I have mapped out the constellations and I have proven that Christmas cannot. No, go read a book. It was anyway.
Yes, I mean, honestly, even like, well, at least maybe not when I was super young, but like as I got older, there was definitely eventually some discussion, like with my parents and like in the church and everything, that like, oh yeah, so like actually Jesus wasn't born in December, like it would have been like in the springish time, but yeah. But I mean, we're not gonna move Christmas, y'all. It's Christmas.
Yeah. No.
It's like dumbasses who try to move frickin' Halloween.
Oh, God. Well,
Speaking of
that's
TikTok,
actually based on like an actual like.
Speaking of TikTok, there's a great series where a guy like is pretending to be two characters, one of whom is Jesus and one of whom is a conservative. And the conservative is always like, and this is how we like totally represent Jesus. And Jesus is like, no, bro. And then the conservative is like, bro, no. It's great.
Nice.
I'll send links in the group chat. It's
Yay.
Yes, please. Okay, so our next passage from the play itself is we're just gonna have to go a little bit back and forth with it because there's a bunch of characters in it, and
Sure.
let's just pretend that everything's fine. But it begins with Alice.
Oh, honestly, Jesus wasn't even born yet. Mary was great with child.
Pregnant? Mary wasn't pregnant.
Don't say that.
Okay, team, put a cork in it. We all know Mary was pregnant.
I don't think it's nice to say pregnant in church.
But Mary was.
I'm not even allowed to say pregnant out of church.
And this is the barn where Mary had her baby.
She wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger.
Because there was no room for them at the inn.
And this is Imogen, by the way. They didn't have room for Jesus?
Well, and nobody knew the baby was going to become Jesus.
Didn't Mary know? And what's the matter with Joseph? Why didn't he tell the innkeeper? I mean, my God, she was pregnant.
I'm saying that.
What's a manger? Some kind of bed?
They didn't have a bed in the barn, so they put him in the manger, which was a big feeding trough for animals.
This is getting worse and worse. Mary wrapped her baby in wadded up clothes and stuffed him in a feed box? Where was her social worker?
That was so funny to me.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they actually go into it afterward where, there weren't social workers back then. And the poor Herdmans, this is where I, listen, like, obviously they've had, the Herdmans have a difficult life and everything. We've already, that's understood from the beginning, regardless of people just talking shit about them. But like, it's after that the Herdman kids are like, well, our social worker comes to our house like once a week. And like, that's when you realize it's bad when, I'm thinking, even when I thought it was the 80s still. So like it's the 80s or it's the 60s and a social worker is coming to your house back then once a week. That's bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's bad. That's really bad. Like,
It's not great.
and they just gloss over it. Like it's hilarious. And it's like, okay, no, that part isn't actually funny at all. Like Imogen being like, she just wrapped her baby in like wads of clothes and like threw him in a feed box. Like, where's their social worker? That's amusing. But like the not amusing part is like, that they know what a social worker is and that their social worker comes to their house once a week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But again, it's a show about how the poorest and most disadvantaged among us are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Meek, inherit, something.
Something like that. And it's like, it's great. Maybe like, and there's a whole big thing about how like the church is making up baskets for disadvantaged folks, and the Herdmans have the biggest basket. And it's like, that's great that you're doing that for them at Christmas. How about the rest of the year? Perhaps we should have a better social safety net.
In the United States, though?
Yeah, I know. It's socialism or communism.
Capitalism.
Or like yeah. Yeah.
In this economy.
Yeah. That's great. That's my new slogan is capitalism.
And actually, the economy was actually kind of crappy
Yes.
in the 70s too. So, so then they this whole thing they're having their play rehearsal thing, and Imogen lights a cigar again. Where is this child getting cigars?
I don't know. I assume
Probably
she's
kills them, to be honest.
she's doing that thing where she walks around like old hobos in cartoons, where she has a little toothpick and she just picks butts up out of the gutter, and I don't know.
Whenever you said picks butts up, I was like, for a second, I was like, what? That was like, oh.
Cigar butts. Let me make myself absolutely clear.
So she lights a cigar, and everybody's like telling her to put it out, and they smell smoke, and the whole then they like have to evacuate the church. And it actually turns out that it wasn't even Imogen's cigar that was causing the smoke; it was some church bitch who burnt her stupid cake.
Applesauce cake.
But like the Reverend comes in, and he's like, "I'm canceling Christmas," and it's like, wait a minute. So this one dude can just cancel the entire holiday for like what? Just the church? The entire town? Like he just cancels because he doesn't say the Christmas pageant. He says he is canceling Christmas entirely.
Yes, we can also assume that he outlawed dancing.
Ah, yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. Theory. This town that this happens in is actually the same town that Footloose happens in as well.
Prove us wrong.
That's absolutely
You
correct.
can't. No, seriously. My friend and I who are here, we went down. We started going down a Home Alone theory rabbit hole on Christmas Eve. And then that just led to us reading a bunch of articles, like listicles from like BuzzFeed and shit, where it was like theories, like crazy media theories or whatever. And it's always some odd number of theories. And like the BuzzFeed articles, they don't actually give any explanation. Like sometimes they'll put a link and sometimes that link will actually work. And sometimes it just goes to some like Reddit user's profile and not actually to the post with the theory. But whatever, that's besides the point. So like we actually started playing a game. We started playing a game Christmas Eve where we just make up theories about media and give no explanation for them. And then you have to say what image you would attach to them. So like one of them that we were talking about was that, oh my gosh, which was it? It was
Wayfair selling children. No.
Oh my God.
No.
Anyway, nothing serious like that.
Yeah,
things like this where it's like, obviously this is the same town where Footloose takes place.
Oh,
and the
right,
Reverend is the person who outlawed dancing. Like that's a good theory. You can't give any reasoning for it though. Just the theory presented with a picture. And one of them, I don't remember what we were talking about. It was like some movie or show or something. Some Christmas movie where somebody dies and he was like, she actually dies of diabetes. Like not of like whatever it says she actually dies of. And I was like, yes, and the picture is Wilford Brimley from the diabetes commercial.
Nice.
Oh gosh.
So this is the amount of ridiculous we're talking about. You have to posit a theory with zero explanation and some picture. Oh no, we were talking about Blair Witch Project. That's what it was. She doesn't actually die because the witch kills her or whatever. She dies of diabetes in that basement. And like the picture for that theory would just be Wilford Brimley saying diabetes. Like a gif of Wilford Brimley saying diabetes. So this is the level of theory that I'm talking about. And I do, Seth, thank you for this, that Footloose takes place in the same town as the best Christmas pageant ever. And that Reverend Wilkins or Wilson or whatever the fuck his name is the guy that outlaws dancing, along with canceling Christmas.
In the non-musical play, that doesn't even happen. The Reverend's just like, oh, are you sure we should do the pageant? And Grayson's like, yeah, we should do the pageant. He's like, but a lot of people have complained. And she's like, yeah, we're still doing the pageant. He's like, okay. And that's like, there's nobody running in and canceling Christmas. But again, it's a musical. They needed a big,
well, I mean,
dramatic gesture.
in this particular musical, like they cancel it, but then the Grace, I don't know what's the last name of like Grace and Beth and their family? Do we know what it is?
Probably. Hang on a second. I'll go back up to the top.
The Bradleys.
The Bradleys. There
Okay.
we go.
So the Bradleys, well, Grace and Bob, maybe I don't know. They bring the Christmas basket to the Herdmans and they like spy on them.
Yeah.
And they feel so bad for them because they're so excited about like their Christmas ham and shit that they decide they're going to do the Christmas pageant anyway.
Yep.
And I guess this is where I kind of like miss out. I didn't realize that like Beth, I guess Beth is the narrator, so she has to be omnipresent. So, like, of course she was with Grace, but so they spy on the Herdmans opening their Christmas basket, and then Grace feels bad, and they decide to do the pageant anyway.
Becca, read the line.
Sorry, I'm okay. Let's see here. I just wanted to say we're doing the pageant after all.
And you're still in it. And then Imogen's like, did that man change his mind?
Not yet, but he will. Be at the church at 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Do we need a baby Jesus? I can get one from the grocery store. There's lots of them just sitting around in the grocery carts.
Thank you, Leroy, but that won't be necessary. Do you kids have a doll?
Just this one. And by the way, the doll sheep, I wish I here. Just this one.
He's perfect.
Do you You need a cat?
Oh, good. Good heavens. No, I mean, thank you, Claude, but we don't. We'll see you all tomorrow night.
So yeah, Grace just decides that they can have the Christmas pageant anyway, even though the Reverend has canceled Christmas entirely. I really just wanted to include this because I liked the, like, do we need a baby Jesus? I can, like, go steal one from the.
That was
That's
one of
the
the
best.
funniest. That was one of the funniest things, I think.
Yeah,
You
there's
know
a few very funny lines in this.
You know what
Yeah.
that actually reminds me of is Walter talking to the dude in The Big Lebowski, where he's like, "You want a toe, dude? I can get you a toe by 2:00. Nail polish or not."
Oh my god.
Oh, Big Lebowski was another
So good.
another movie we had theories from the other day. But yeah, no, I mean, and just also the mention of the cat again.
Yeah.
I want to meet this cat, you guys.
I mean, do you though?
Yes.
I don't think the cat wants to meet you.
Probably not, but I've only met one cat who ever didn't like me, so.
Is it Appa? What?
Nothing.
Mutters.
Mutters, yeah. So the oh man. So like, also one of the things that we kind of skipped over a little bit was Helen. You know, we mentioned it a little bit, but Helen trying to convince or force Grace to remove the Herdmans from the play, and Grace like really does, like, eventually she, like, it comes up a second time or a third time, and Grace like really digs her feet in and refuses, you know, to remove them. And it's like, is she refusing to bend to peer pressure? Is she actively trying to do the right thing? But like, I don't really, I feel like it's almost just that she just doesn't want to admit that she screwed up. I don't know. It's very, I don't like
think that
most of the
she's
people in this
trying
place.
to do the right thing, but from the perspective of the, like, woke white person, you know, like, you're not. And I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which is, I think, a breeding ground for, like, quotation marks woke white people, where they talk a good game, but they don't actually, like, really do the things that are required to be anti-racist, to be anti-classist, all of those things. And in my mind, at least, that scene where she and Beth see the Herdmans for the first time, kind of like in their own element, and start to understand, like, really what the Herdmans are going through. That's, I think, the first time that they're humanized instead of being these almost kind of like monstrous outsiders. And so then that's why Grace is like, okay, we have to do this regardless. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to make sure that they get to do these roles. Before that, I think it is mostly like, I know this is, like, the right thing to do, but also I don't want Helen to get her way, and I kind of want to do my own thing, basically. But ultimately, I think, and this may just be my, like, childhood nostalgia playing up, I think she's trying to do the right thing, but is doing it through all of her own prejudice and privilege.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's like, it's pretty clear that nobody would have ever reached out to them to include them in the community had Charlie not told a lie about how much dessert he gets at Sunday school, which is also, I think, a weird reaction to somebody stealing your lunch. Yeah. Because if somebody, like, took my dessert, the last thing I would want to know, let them know, is where my supply is coming from.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, at least in the book, they kind of talk about how they're kind of trying to, like, brag about it and be like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because we've got all these great snacks at Sunday school. But you're right, like, that's the worst way to treat a bully. Like, taunt them with better options.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole thing about the best thing about Sunday school is Charlie's like, there's no Herdmans there. Let me tell them something that would make them want to come. Okay.
Oh, you fucked up now, kid.
Well, like, and one of the questions like I had wanted to ask was like, are the I was asking this question before I finished reading the play, which was, are the Herdman children really all that mischievous or evil? Because like at the beginning, like I'm thinking like when we find out like the sort of like situation they're living in or whatever, because again, I had never read this or seen this before. They felt like very much like the O'Doyles from the stupid like from Billy Madison.
Oh, yeah.
And, like,
O'Doyle rules.
O'Doyle rules, like Herdman's rule. Like maybe I kind of want if I cared more about Adam Sandler and he wasn't just such a dumb fucking person who still like creates these awful, like offensive characters like 20 years after they were even sort of like slightly okay. Anyway, like I would kind of want to ask him, like, did you ever see this? And like, is this where you got the O'Doyles from? Because it kind of feels like they feel like the O'Doyles or vice versa, you know? But yeah, it really is like at first, yeah, we're absolutely supposed to believe that they're these like mischievous evil kids because they're bullies and they're stealing everybody's lunches. But then in the end, it turns out they really like, yes, they are still bad kids. They're still doing bad things, but like the circumstances that lead to this, like they're the way they are about that Christmas Christmas basket and the food that's in it. And they're like, oh, we won't go hungry this week. And it's like, okay, so well, that's why they're stealing kids' lunches. Doesn't make it right. Yeah. But like, you know,
that's the problem with Beth as a narrator, right?
Right.
Because she is perceiving it from the perspective of being one of the kids whose lunches are in danger.
Yes.
And that's her only perception of the Herdmans. She, and also in fairness, like she's a kid, she can't really understand the intricacies of what classism can do to a family. But it is also why for most of the narrative, they're the villains. But in the final act, essentially, you get to see them as, oh, they can actually be the ones who help save this. Yeah. And it would be really interesting actually to see this done from the perspective of the Herdmans.
Yeah. Although probably kind of sad. Like
Well,
it would be, as the youth say, cringe. But
well, let's be real. This was. I mean, the whole time I was reading this, I was like, ugh.
Oh yeah, the whole it's pretty cringe as is.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's the. I will also say that the pageant, to me, is insufficient to cause the reaction that it does.
What do you mean?
Well, because everybody has that weird, if you will, come to Jesus moment.
Boom, boom.
But it's just like, I'm like, there's not enough in here. There's not enough meat for me to buy that Helen suddenly goes, I've been wrong this whole time.
Oh no, Helen is still awful because she literally tries to then like take credit for Gladys being cast as the angel when she hears people are like, "Oh my gosh, Gladys was so good," and it's like, "Bitch, you didn't do shit."
Yeah, Helen's the worst.
Also, there was this last line that Gladys. Who put this in here? Was it Nick that you wanted us to include the Gladys saying? What did she say? Becca highlighted it, so Becca should read it.
She says, sorry, I'm having, anyway, hey everybody, unto us a child is born.
And by the way, she says this, like she just busts out and says this like after the play is kind of ended, I think. Like it's like, like it's all kind of wrapped up and she's like, yeah, I get to wear my pink wings. Like
in the non-musical play, that's the last line of the show. Like she comes out, breaks the fourth wall, and says, "Hey, everybody! Unto us a child is born." Curtain.
It's also at the end of the book.
Yeah.
Which it is a whole thing throughout the process where they're trying to get her to say the line right and to say it at the right time, and then and she can't do it. And then she finally, at the end of the play, says it slightly wrong, but like in a really fun, like nice way. And it's supposed to be like, oh, see, they don't do it exactly the way that we would do it, but they do it in a way that is still meaningful and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I would like to say?
What's that?
I would like to see somebody use this as their like baby announcement. No, like could you imagine like every year they choose one couple from the church, because church people have babies left and fucking right, like at least me growing up, like so like they choose a couple from the church that like just recently got pregnant but hasn't told anybody yet,
and then they get to do the announcement.
It could also be like gender reveal.
Oh, there you go.
Hopefully it won't start a forest fire.
It wouldn't though, because it would. I imagine Gladys be like, "A child is born," and it would just be like pink or blue glitter. I mean, listen, I hate gender reveals. I'm not by any means behind gender reveals for so many reasons, but like this seems like the church would, like some rabid churchgoers would use this as like a pregnancy announcement or something. Like,
I love that. Becca's just like, gross.
Oh yeah, babies in pregnancy are icky, so you don't need to tell me that.
I mean, I'm not like anti-pregnancy. I'm just not pro me pregnancy.
Right? No. But also, don't ever make me touch your pregnant belly.
Somebody did that?
Are you fucking kidding me? Like that's like like you go to baby showers and they're like, touch my belly, and I'm like, no, I don't want to see your belly or your weird belly button thing going on right now. I don't like any of this.
Your weird belly button thing.
Seth, I don't think you or I have been to as many baby showers as
no. I only think I can only recall going to baby showers as a child when I would have to go because my parents were going.
Men usually aren't even invited, let alone,
It reminds me of the baby shower that David Rose throws for Jocelyn, and they're trying to throw, and they invented the game, the throwing the pills into mommy's mouth. But they're using and they used to do it with their own mother, and now they're doing it with Jocelyn, but it's like candy or something.
Ew, David.
Ew, David.
Yeah, no. Well, now there's a new thing called a baby like sprinkle, where when you've had like more, when you're on your like second or third kid or whatever, you have a sprinkle, which is
not a shower.
You ask people, like it's usually co-ed, and you ask people to get you things like diapers.
Yeah,
which I'm a little bit more understanding of, but like, also ew babies.
Ew babies.
That's a quote.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, I just picture like that this like, I don't know why that was like a thought that came to my mind. You know what it was? It was because I finished reading this after like seeing one of my friends post on Facebook that they saw like 3 pregnancy announcements yesterday or the day before, and I was like, oh, ew.
That happens a lot this time of year.
I know, like, I mean, who's getting pregnant in the summer? There's better things. Well, I guess not this year. Never mind.
There was
nothing better to do.
I unrest my case here.
We are literally having the first batch of COVID babies right now.
Oh yeah, we're there. Like, so we have baby boomers, and this is going to be COVID boomers. Like, or I don't know what.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like any of it. Icky. I'm just gonna keep saying icky. Okay, so we've kind of gone through this. We're at like about an hour and a half, which is usually what I like to keep these at. Any last, some random things that I had kind of mentioned was like, oh, do we want to talk about the best, worst things about this play? But we've kind of done this like throughout, I think, which is good, because like I like the fact that we kind of were able to break this up with like discussion and reading these absolutely ridiculous passages. To be honest, like my favorite passage is still always going to be the one about like where Imogen is like, wait a minute. You telling me that this lady had to wrap her baby up in rags and like put him in like a trough that animals eat out of? Like, where's the social worker? But yeah, honestly, thank you, Nick, for introducing me to this nonsense. Like, I guess I'm, like I said, like I'm the lone wolf. I had never heard of it before. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with my life.
I'm just glad that Becca and Seth had, because there's been a lot of people that I've talked to about this, and they're like, "What?" And and it's so strange because I did, like, literally every year from the time I was a little kid, it was what was read to me on Christmas Eve, and it's ridiculous. And I love
How
that I
long
got to
is
share
the
it with
book
you.
that you were reading an entire
Oh,
book?
like super thin.
Oh, it's
Oh,
tiny.
super thin.
Tiny. Again,
Like a children's book.
Yeah,
Basically,
stage
yeah, it's like
play,
a novella, I would say.
yeah, the
Like
stage play is
maybe-
44 minutes, 44 pages long. The book can't be.
Yeah, it's right around there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really
I mean,
short.
this unfortunately the one I found, the only one I could find that was easily accessible online was the musical script, and like, but also I'm not mad that I found that one because
Yeah.
even in the end, like, it's 129 pages, I think, but like a couple at the beginning, a few at the beginning, and a few at the end are just nonsense. There's a whole bunch of blank space and everything. So I mean, it took me an hour.
Yeah,
putting it
it's
to
not
read.
as long as the page count would suggest. I found the original stage play online, except the version I found for whatever reason was missing 5 pages.
Oh, weird.
Like, so pages 37
Oh.
through 41 were not, and I was like, that was a big jump. Okay, whatever.
So you have no idea what happened. Oh no.
Except that I do, and it was not important.
I just discovered, I did not know this. Apparently, there is a sequel called The Best
2.
Halloween Ever. Yes, there's 2,
Huh.
but I'm really excited about The Best Halloween Ever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Halloween, a special episode a billion years from now.
Oh dear, but the Matt Berman of Common Sense Media describes that book as being tame to the point of being lame.
I mean, this one actually, you know what? This one definitely would not have been considered tame back in the 70s. Really, probably
No.
not even in the 80s. Like, there's children smoking cigars. for
Yeah.
God's
Yeah, but
sake.
also like the 80s, like everybody smoked. So I feel like it wouldn't have been too traumatizing.
I don't know. I feel like cigars and babies is a little
So maybe.
beyond the pale.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to share this. I'm really glad Becca and Seth were able to join us for this one.
I'm glad too. I'm happy I could be here.
Yeah, I know I've been trying to get Seth on for a while because, like, you know, we've got our usual 4 hosts for like the Grishaverse books and stuff, but like we there's also some other, you know, one-off books that eventually were to stretch out the Grishaverse just a little bit. We might have to add like a rando episode in there, at least one, I would say. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Reading this play was definitely an experience that I don't wish to repeat, but no, I honestly, I'm like only about I'm like 40% joking because really, like, there's nothing I love more than dumb Christmas media. And I have literally watched nothing but dumb Christmas media for like a month and a half now. I mean, there's like I've been going on and on about over Thanksgiving weekend. I watched this movie called Christmas Wedding Planner. It's like a Canadian movie, but it's on Netflix. And there was a chef character in it named Charles. He's got very long, luscious hair and glasses. And he's I think he's supposed to be super attractive. Like, he's, you know, fine, whatever. But like, he's in it and like he appears in it, and you kind of think like there's a thing going on between him and the main character, right? Like she's the wedding planner, he's the chef or the baker that's like making desserts for the wedding, and you know he's kind of nerdy and weird, but she's like, oh, Cheryl, and then like he just disappears and you never see him again in the movie, and she falls in love with someone else, I don't remember who. And then right after that, I watched a movie called Christmas with a View, and I believe this was one where it's something about there's like a ski lodge or something, and a chef is coming in to take over the restaurant at the ski lodge. But the whole chef thing starts out with the people that work at the ski lodge are watching a cooking show, like a cooking, you know, competition show on TV, and one of the characters is Charles.
Oh, are they doing the thing where it's like the Netflix holiday special
No,
universe?
man, these are two totally different Christmas movies. They're both Canadian, but they were made like 2 years apart, I think.
Huh.
But and Charles in the first movie has like a couple scenes, where he actually has lines.
Yeah.
And in this one, he's literally just like a guest spot when they are airing this, like, or when they're watching them. When they're watching this, Christmas, cooking show, or I'm sorry, a chef like cooking show, cooking competition, and it's like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Over Thanksgiving, when we were watching this, we had to pause it and like just laugh so hard we cried for about 30 minutes. Now, it didn't help that we've been drinking, or maybe it did, but like the fact that this character showed up in like these two stupid Christmas movies back to back. But yes, this is the type of shit that I've been doing with the past month plus of my life, is just watching stupid fucking Christmas shit.
Well, 'tis the season,
Yeah, and there's a lot of it. So, but okay. So before we sign off, I guess, what's one good holiday or Christmas thing that you would suggest to people? Like for me, I always say Elf. I know that's kind of kitschy or whatever, but I love Elf. I love Elf. I love Elf. It's dumb and it's good, and I love it. So that's my suggestion.
As far as Christmas stuff goes, I don't know, like this Christmas has been really weird. Obviously, I know it's been that weird for everybody. I always watch Christmas with the Cranks every Christmas. And I also try to watch the Santa Claus. Only 1 and 2, not the third one. Third one's ass.
I didn't know there was a third one.
Yeah, there is. So, but definitely Elf, because Tara and I watch Elf. Also, a Christmas Prince, royal wedding, and a Christmas Prince, a royal baby on Netflix.
Okay.
It has the girl who plays
Liv
and iZombie, and it's
they're all bad.
Yeah.
Oh, I love her so much. She's so good in iZombie.
Yeah. So we've got that going on.
I did make a 60-second version of a Christmas Prince for TikTok.
I know, I saw it. It was really funny.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do like the wedding. I really wanted to do the I think it's inheritance one, but I couldn't. I just was like, no, I don't feel like trying to force like a pregnancy nonsense. No, not doing it.
What about you, Seth?
I think I'm gonna have to go National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Gonna have to reach back and pull that one forward. I'm also gonna say that this is a qualified recommendation. I actually quite enjoyed Happiest Season. I understand that many people didn't, and I understand their criticisms, but I actually thought it was a pretty decent movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
What was
Happiest
Season?
Season.
It's about a lesbian
that's
couple.
the gay one, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, it's essentially an all-star cast for a cheesy Christmas movie, which worked out really well, I thought. But again, there's definitely legitimate criticisms. I enjoyed it.
Yep. My classic would have to be Muppet Christmas Carol, because come on. Michael Caine giving like one of the best performances as Ebenezer Scrooge while surrounded by Muppets. Iconic. My less well-known recommendation is a movie called Nativity. It came out in, I think, 2009. It stars Martin Freeman. I think right before he became Watson in the Sherlock series. And it's actually it's an improvised movie. There's no script. There's like an outline of what's supposed to happen. And it's like Best Christmas Pageant ever. It's a elementary school putting on the Christmas pageant, but it becomes a musical, and it is phenomenal. And highly recommend it. It also has, what's her name? She played Pam in the British Office. Ashley Jensen.
Okay.
In it as well. And
I'm looking. There are 4 of these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only seen the first 2. The first one is really the best. The second one's okay. I haven't seen the other ones.
The third one is Dude, Where's My Donkey? Which is a reference to, I believe, early 2000s
Dude, where's
Ashton
my
Kutcher
car?
vehicle, Dude, Where's My Car?
Yes.
Which is everything it was advertised to be.
Yeah, absolutely awful and ridiculous, but also like kind of hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
Kind of iconic.
Well, I mean, there's that part where they pull up next to Fabio with the other supermodel, and he starts making out. So then, Sean William Scott and Ashton Kutcher turn to each other and start making out. And it's
Yep.
just, yeah.
It is what it is, and what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, well, shit! I never heard of Nativity. I'll have to look that up. That sounds.
I
Yeah,
know that
fascinating.
there's something called Nativity, but it's like the story of Jesus.
Yeah, no, fuck that. It's
No.
not that.
No. We just talked about a play where children are smoking cigars, Becca. All right. Well, I think that about wraps us up. Thank you guys so much for joining our Sassy Holiday Christmas special. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, please forgive points where we might be making faces and stuff and showing things on screen. It is what it is.
Yeah, you should really watch because we make great faces.
Yeah.
But we will be back. Sagas and Sass will be back for our next regular episode not for a while, but on Wednesday, January 13th, we'll be talking about the first half of Crooked Kingdom by Lee Bardugo. So hopefully, yeah, it's really good. So
Very
hopefully, if you've read the Grishaverse, you'll join us for that. And again, thank you guys for joining. Have a lovely rest of your holiday season. And if you're not ready for Christmas to be over yet, definitely check out some of the things we discussed.
Yep.
Have a lovely night. Bye.
Bye.